Fine. We'll talk about dragons later. So, there's a point in this chapter where if Oda had ended it at that point in time, and I'm pretty sure most of you know what I'm referring to, all of us would be going into, like, the next 2 weeks with the break going like, not good. Thankfully, Oda didn't do that, and that's appreciated. I'll get to that part later. First off, so chapter 1174, titled The Strongest Being in This World, which, given what we see in this chapter, at the end of the chapter, that's most likely what it's referring to, but also given what we are going to see in this chapter, there are several other characters that this phrase can apply to in a very different way. So, first we have the chapter cover, which I love. And this has to be something that happened on Little Garden, because I can so see this actually canonly happening, this happening in canon. It is Roger walking a freaking T-Rex like it's a puppy. Yeah. Roger walking a T-Rex like it is a puppy. The T-Rex has Roger's hat on it, his captain's hat, and he's like feeding it like a hunk of meat on the bone, and the T-Rex just looks very happy. And I'm looking at this, and I was like, oh, that's like Tiny from Meet the Robinsons. So, Disney nerd here. Meet the Robinsons is like a kind of one of Disney's attempts at kind of futuristic type stuff that I really like. It's a fun movie. Go watch it. I did a whole review on it. But there is a moment in the movie where there is a dinosaur that gets brought into things. And the dinosaur at the end of the movie gets adopted by the family and is called Tiny because it's essentially been domesticated. It's just funny. And this was just giving off those vibes of just like Roger being the Rayleigh like, hey, Rayleigh, I found a T-Rex. It's going to be our new pet. Rayleigh and Scopper just... No. No, Roger, no. But Shanks and Buggy will love him. Roger. Just like that whole thing. Now we get into the chapter, and this is picking up directly where we left off after the last one. Summers was even summarizing it for us. Damn, that idiot demon, dream demon. So this is, of course, at the end of the previous chapter, the giant nightmare Nika has shown up. It got, beat up by the parents and knocked away, and then it kind of was going to land on Summer. Summer then knocked it away from himself, and it landed on the boat, and the boat sunk through the clouds. Like, just, no more boat, no more clouds, demon gone. And now, of course, because where the arrow is pointing, that's where the kids are going to keep walking. And the arrow was originally leading them to the boat, to the ship. Well, now the ship's gone. And that's not good. And the kids are still walking. So, yeah, Summers is essentially summing it up. It's just like the ship. He even took part of the sea cloud with him. Now, had there still been sea cloud here, this would be a bit less of a dramatic issue because, the kids could land in the sea cloud, and that would be semi-okay. We know that sea cloud can support up to a certain amount of weight. I would hope that the kids are kind of buoyant enough that would be fine, but that's not the case here. So that's not happening. And he's like, they even took part of the sea cloud with it. And he's just like, now the whole plan's gone down the drain. At this rate, the brats are gonna fall from this height and splatter all over the ground below. Ugh. So he's like, dang it, that's not gonna help the plan. There are multiple parts of this that are going to result in hopefully Summers being snuffed out later by Emu. So there are moments in this chapter that have made it so I very much want to punch an old man. And that doesn't happen very often. It happens more in fiction than it does in real life, but there are moments in real life where it has happened where I wish to punch an old man. And there are moments in this chapter, several, where I wish to punch specifically Summers. There's other old men in One Piece that have come up that I've kind of wanted to punch as well. Mostly Saturn. But we'll get to why I want to punch Summers more than Saturn at this point in time. to be fair, Saturn's dead now, but you get the idea. So, Summers has gotten onto the Denzen Mushi and he's like yelling over it. It was like, Gunko, stop the brats. We have to suspend the plan for now. And he's like, oh, forget it. That's not happening. Imu-sama is still inside. So, trying to talk to Gunko right now isn't going to help. Gunko is not paying attention to you, and Imu is currently distracted by having to fight against Brook. Which hopefully Brook is putting up a good amount of a fight. Hopefully we'll cut back to that and we'll get to see Brook putting up a good fight against Imu Gunko. So Summers is looking down and he's seeing the parents, and it's just like, if we could at least stop this arrow. And we see like a bunch of the parents and the grandparents, and so we see like Ronya's dad is there and a woman who I'm assuming is possibly Ronya's grandmother. Or like they're all trying to, like, Ronya's father is like trying to cut the arrow with his axe, and I'm assuming it's Ronya's grandmother is like literally chewing on the arrow, trying to get it to stop. We see other ones trying to pull the arrow, trying to get it to go a different way, and they're like, what the hell is this thing made of? Nothing's worked. And we hear the kid screaming, Daddy, Mommy, help! God. And we see Summers is like yelling down at the parents. We see a woman who I think is supposed to be Ilva's mother, and then one of the other parents or family. And Summers is like, don't even bother trying, you idiots. If there were any way to stop the arrow, I'd have done it by now. And then we get Summers going into just disgusting, horrible mode. He is thinking, and he says like, wait, the parents are trying to protect their children, but they're not able to. My thorns won't allow it. And because of that, all the children are going to fall to their deaths. And then we get Summers just making this horrible, horrible, disgusting face that I don't even want to look at. And I apologize to any fan artist who is being paid to have to draw him, and any animator later on down the line who has to draw him making these effed up faces. And he's thinking, what a delicious way to die. Moments like it's like, so what I was saying earlier is that like there are moments in One Piece that have made me want to punch old men. Mostly Saturn during the Egghead arc, when we're learning about all the crap that he has put Kuma and Ginny and Bonnie through and all of that stuff. But the thing is that like, well, I'm sure that Saturn took some amount of, you know, satisfaction out of it to a degree. He wasn't like experiencing it the way that Summers is, and like throughout the course of this arc and through the flashback that we got for, like, you know, the Harold flashback where we saw Summers on God Valley, we see how effed in the head he is when it comes to the way that he views love. And while we are aware of the fact that when it comes to the Celestial Dragons, they view pretty much anybody who's not a Celestial Dragon as lower than them, as just like trash of the earth, scum of the earth. Just, they're here for our amusement, and once they have fulfilled their purpose, then what's the point? And so we kind of see that here. And like we've seen that with other Celestial Dragons, the Gorosei view the other humans as like insects. That type of stuff. Summers, of course, is one of the God's Knights. He has the various levels of the pact, at least the regeneration portion of it. But he still very much views other humans as just like trash, as just like, these are not worth my time beyond what entertainment they can give me. And given the way that we have seen him act when it comes to, you know, children and their parents and stuff like that, or even like, you know, people and their loved ones, he doesn't give a crap as long as he can get entertainment out of it by watching them suffer, because he doesn't understand what love is. And the thing with Summers is, like, we have people throughout the story who have, you know, throughout the story we have seen like a very good example of like people on the emotional spectrum when it comes to people who take like, you know, joy in causing people pain. You know, Doflamingo took to a degree an amount of joy in causing pain. Crocodile took a degree of joy in causing pain, but not the way that Summers does, not the way that Summers acts. Summers is a very different way of doing it. Like, even Kaido and Big Mom, to a degree, take a bit of, joy in causing some of the pain that they cause, but not to the way as, Orochi is possibly the closest one that seems to have, like, this very similar comparison. And even then, still horrible. But, like, Summers is just, he is so just, I don't like talking about it. But he is just so effed in the head for the way that he views love. And he's just thinking, hold on, that actually might be worth it. First off, Gunko's being controlled by the Great One, so it'll end up being his fault. So Summers is just like, oh, good. I'm not going to get blamed for this. Imu's the one in control of in control of Gunko, and since she can't stop the arrows, then this is not my fault. There's nothing here that's going to land on my shoulders. This won't land on my head. This will be, Imu made the mistake. Yeah, I don't think Imu's going to view it that way. Because Mu does not make mistakes. Summer can make mistakes. And he's trying to, make it so it's not on his head for this. That's not going to happen. And he's thinking, and we can always grab more kids later if we want. So that's just more of this effed up way that he's looking at things. But, like, the thing is that we know that celestial dragons are capable of love. Or at least some of them are. We saw this with Homing and his wife, that they very much love their children. Loved, Dofi and Roshinate. And, one of the reasons Homing gave up his right as a celestial dragon and everything is because he wanted to try to have a better life for his kids. That didn't end up going the way that he wanted to, unfortunately. But again, idiot hubris with good intentions. And then even Dofi still loved his brother. He still loved Roshinate. And he still loved him even after he learned that, Roshinate had betrayed him. But he still saw it as, like, this person has betrayed me, so he still killed Roshinate. And then you have, we've had other examples of some of the other celestial dragons, like, as parents, like, we have seen this with Roswald when it comes to Charlos. Like, he very much does care about his son. He does care about Charlos. He loves his son. He was concerned about him when he was hurt by, Luffy and by Milzigard and all of that stuff. So we have seen that there. We have seen that some celestial dragons are capable of compassion, mostly when it comes to their own children, but still. And we even saw this with Garling when it came to, the way that he treats Shanks and Shamrock. He still has compassion for them because he views them as, oh, these are my children. Their mother he did not care about by any means, but he still cared about his children. And we saw this, and like, it was an effed up way of showing it, but it was a way of showing it where when we got, like, the little flashback several chapters ago, or a couple of chapters ago, where it's like when Shanks returns to the Holy Land and he's, like, reintroduced to, Shamrock and his, and Garling and everything for the first time. Garling is like, oh, my dear boy, my sweet boy, I'm so happy that you're back, but, like, just forget about that horrid life down there down there in the lower realm. It's fine. It must have been horrible growing up there. Just forget about all of those burdens and come and, live here and everything else like that. Come join us here. And that was very much, because I was kind of explaining some of this to my mom, and that was very much kind of this moment of, from, Garling and Shamrock and the other celestial dragons' perspective, living down in the lower realm is horrible. They go down there for vague entertainment purposes, and then they go back to Marijois. And they spend the majority of their lives on Marijois. The fact that Shanks has lived down there for so long, and of course they kind of viewed it as like, oh, Roger and his crew must have kidnapped Shanks. Shanks was well loved on the crew and well taken care of. Same thing with Buggy. And Shanks is very much well loved by his crew. And he very much loves the Roger Pirates, and he loves his crew and all of that stuff. But, from the Celestial Dragon's perspective, from Garling's perspective, it's like, oh, Shanks is coming out of this horrible traumatic experience of having to live down there. My son, I will comfort you, and stuff like that. And that's kind of the way that Garling was kind of treating that situation. I don't even know if Summers would feel that way about his own children. because Summers has this effed up way that he plays this game where, you know, he's got the thorns on the kids so the parents or the other adults can't touch the kids to try to stop them. So that way they're not going to get hurt. So they can't be taken. So it's like this whole thing of like, are you going to sacrifice yourself in order to protect your own child, or even to protect a child that maybe not yours, as we're going to see later on in this chapter, you know, or we saw with Saul earlier on in the arc where he's trying to grab the kids and still getting like stabbed in the process. He's trying to protect them. And then in this case, you know, we're going to see later in this, you know, a little bit later in the chapter, we're going to see another variation of that with Ange trying to protect the children and such. And we're going to see that very much here with the parents in a few minutes. But, you know, I don't even know if Summers would be able to understand that way about his own children. We know he wouldn't have treated Shocky well had he been the one to win, you know, her as the prize. Garling, I mean, again, it's a horrible situation she would have been in no matter what. But, like, Garling may have at the very least been, I guess, more hospitable, more kind to her, you know, viewed her a bit differently. But Summers would have just been horrible to Shocky in a much more obviously abusive way. Again, doesn't make it right no matter who in that situation she would have ended up with, because she's being viewed as a prize and she is there completely against her will and she wants to be with Rayleigh, and you get the idea. I went over this with when we were in those chapters, but Summers would have just treated her physically abusive horribly. And then I don't know if Summers even has any children at this point in time. We don't know if Summers has any children. We know he's somehow tangentially related to Jupiter, but we don't know beyond that. Like, does Summers have his own children? Does he have any nieces or nephews? You know, what's part of that situation there? And depending on how all that lands, it's like, well, like, if we saw like Summers around his own children, would we have a different type of way that he would be looking at this situation? Like, if his children were put into this type of a situation with him as the one trying to protect them, would he be trying to actually protect them, or would he just find this exceedingly entertaining and wonderful and thrilling to watch? And the thing is I kind of don't want to find out, because I don't want to have sympathy for this man by any means. And the thing is like, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't have any children. Maybe he would treat any child like this, even if it was his own child, or maybe his own child would be the exception. But again, don't really want Summers to have a child. That seems wrong on many levels. But, like, so he's just like, oh my god, the parents and the children screaming in desperate tears. This is just so thrilling. So he's just, like, hoping that this is going to be so entertaining for him and everything. So he's gotten on the Den Den machine and is, like, calling out to the brats and the PTA members. We had intended to escort you safely to the Holy Land, but due to a few complications, aka I threw a demon on the ship and the sea clouds have vanished. In other words, you'll be dying from the fall, which means a tragically miserable end awaits you at the finish line. And, like, we see, like, the kids coming over, like, the little bit of the crest in the hill and going, you know, starting to go down the steps to the dock. And, like, we was, like, Colin and Ilva at, like, the front of the line. And, like, you know, so they're going down, and, like, they're, you know, there's, like, there's nothing there. Wait, what? We're gonna fall if we keep walking. We're gonna fall. And, like, you know, they're coming up to, like, the dock that'll just falls off into nothingness. And we know that it leads down to the underworld, the primordial world, but that's still just this huge, vast wasteland. And, like, we saw, you know, we know that Scopper survived his fall because Chopper saved him. But in this case, it's like, yeah, there's no fuzzy reindeer ready to protect each of these kids. Chopper would in a heartbeat. But he would so do that in a heartbeat. But that's not the case at the moment. So we cut to the parents, and we cut to Oimo specifically. Now, Oimo is not a parent of one of these kids. He is a grandfather of one of these kids. He is the grandfather of Olav, who's just one of the other kids that is, part of this group. And he, Oimo is running over to them, and he's like, I'll give up both my arms. If giving up both my arms is what it takes, then there's no way they can stop me. And he's like trying to grab Olav, and we see like the thorns, the huge thorns. Like, I was explaining this to my mom last night because I kind of wanted to talk some of this through, and she's just like, ugh. And I'm like, yeah. And like, so he's trying to grab Olav because his intention is to like grab him and then like try to pull him out so he can, try to pull him away from the arrow so he's not under the effects of the arrow anymore. And so his hands are getting just like shredded, and like it's going into like part of his wrists and stuff like that as well. And it's just like, he's like screaming in pain, and Olaf is like, Grandpa Oimo. And then we cut to Kiringham, who is back to his just hybrid form. Well, he's still in his hybrid form. He hasn't left his hybrid form. But he's just like, unfortunately, there's no other way. And that's like Summers going over the Denden machine. And then Kiringham is just like, what the hell does that idiot Summers doing? We finally get those kids to the port. It's like, he doesn't know that one of his MoMA showed up and that he had to like chuck the MoMA and everything. Still Summers' fault. So Oimo is like trying to, grab Olav to try to pull him away, and he's like trying and trying and trying, and he ends up having to let go because it's like, dragging him down the branch, dragging him along, which is causing more pain. And he's like, damn it. And he has to like let go, and even Olav is like, stop, it hurts, Grandpa. Stop, it hurts, Grandpa, Oimo. So it's like the thorns might also be kind of hurting Olav a little bit too, but they're mostly hurting Oimo. And it's just like, it hurts. So he's like, he like pulls his hands, and he's like, I'm sorry, please forgive me. And one of the mothers, I'm pretty sure it's Bent's mother, is like, Oimo. And he's like, Oimo is getting up, and he's like looking at his hands, and he's like, as long as we don't get rid of that arrow, we can't stop the children. Because if they could at least stop the arrow, the kids would stop walking, and they could like try to get the thorns off of them. Unfortunately, since they can't stop the arrow, they've tried cutting it, they've tried chewing through it, they've tried, pulling it away, and it won't work. Nothing's working on the arrow. Because it's kind of like this kind of, not intangible, because they can still touch it and everything, but it's like trying to like, I don't know, it's like that stuff you would play with when you were a kid. You're like, it's like cornstarch and water mix of like oobleck. It's just like, you can try punching it, and you can try poking it, and you can get into it, but it's not going to do the way that you want it to. It's that weird semi-solid liquid thing. And like Ripley is there, and she's like, you're saying we can't save them? And we see like one of the other moms was like, that can't be. And so like the kids are getting closer and closer to the end of the dock, and Summers is just laughing his ass off in the background at this. And like the parents are just like, are you telling me all we can do is stand here and watch our children fall to their deaths? If they fall into the underworld, we won't even be able to find their bodies. And they're like, stop laughing, you damn demon, as they're like shouting up at Summers. It's like, they don't even bother trying to like attack Summers at this point in time. They're just like, we have to find a way to get to the kids. So, and like, we got the lineup of the kids earlier, I believe. And so we've got Colin at the front of it. We've got Ilva after that, who is Jarl's great-great-granddaughter. We've got, I think it's Scaldi, who's like the kid with the glasses, or the goggles and like the horns. And then we've got Olav, who is Oimo's grandchild. And then we have Karine, who's a little girl that looks like she's got headphones with like a ponytail. And then we have Mag. I think we saw Mag's mother earlier. And then I think after that we have Bent. We only see part of the line here, but I think after that then it's like Bent and Ronya and Joanna and Bjorn. And of course, we've seen Bent's mother. She's the one that the MoMA is based off of. And we saw Ronya's father earlier. I think he's one of the members of the Giant Warrior Pirates. Joanna or Johanna is the little girl who was talking about the fact that it's like, well, at least you guys have parents who care about you, type of a thing. So it's like we're assuming that like she's like an orphan. And then we have Bjorn, who is, of course, Rhode's little brother. So we've got those 10 kids. So we have the kids going through, and like they're just like, oh my god, what's happening? And so we have Mag, who is just like, this must be divine punishment because I did something wrong. And then Olaf is just like, what do you mean? And then Ilva's like, my mom says the same thing when she gets mad at me. And then like I think it's Scaldy is just like, mine too, I should have behaved better. And then I think it's Colin. He's like, are you saying we're going to die because we didn't behave? It's like the whole thing of like, you're told all your life, if you don't behave, you're not going to, Santa's always watching, or there's, the boogeyman will get you, or like Krampus, or whatever you want to go with for like whatever culture is like, they're going to get you, you're going to get in trouble. And it's just like, all of that is like piled up on these kids. And the kids are just like, oh my god, what's gonna happen to us? What did we do wrong? We're sorry. I should have eaten my vegetables more often. And like the kids are like, but I don't want to be died. I'll be good from now on. And they're like, help, help, I'm sorry. Like they're getting closer and closer to the end of the thing. And like, again, effed up look on Summer's face, and Colin's like, I won't be naughty anymore. Like they're all starting to cry, which is fair. Like, put your headspace in the minds of these kids. These are kids who are like, they're being compelled to keep walking. Their parents can't get to them because they have the thorns on them, and the kids know if the parents try to get to them, they're gonna get stabbed. And they don't want their parents to get hurt because they love their parents. But now they're being forced to just keep walking, and they're gonna go and land, they're gonna walk right off this ledge to certain death. And they're just like, we're sorry if we did anything wrong, please, we're sorry, like begging for forgiveness type of thing. And like we see like Colin, like a little flashback with him and Ripley, and he's like home from school, and he's like, look, Mom, did you know the sun god? And she's like, did you know the sun god keeps an eye on naughty kids? And he's like, but Mom, I won this in a duel, so it's mine now. And he's got like this little action figure that kind of looks like Emmett, which is cute. And then we have like Ripley just like grabbing Colin's ear, and it's just like, that's exactly because you're strong. You need to be kinder to weaker kids. No, let's go apologize right now. It's the whole thing of this, like, yeah, I know you're strong, but that doesn't give you the right to force some kid into a duel because you want his toy. You are strong. You need to learn that you can't just go and attack people who are weaker than you simply because they have something that you want. That's not the way that a true warrior of Elbath is, type of a thing. And that's just being rude. And we see Ilva, and she's crying, and we see like a little flashback with like her and her mom, who's like the one that has like the little, like the front little, pigtails that we saw earlier. I think we saw her in the prior chapter. And the mom's like, why did you leave all that food on your plate? You don't like my cooking? And Ilva's like, but there were carrots. It's like, I don't want to eat the carrots. And like all of us have been the kid that's like, but I don't want to eat the yucky veggies. I don't want to eat my yucky veggies. They're not fun. They're gross, type of stuff. I mean, like, fair. I don't like Brussels sprouts. But, like, I like carrots at this point in time. My parents learned what veggies I like, so they gave me those. Even if they were slathered in ranch or butter or whatever. And then we see Scaldy with his mom, and he's like, and she's like, unbelievable. You took your father's sword your sword, and went out again with it. So she's like scolding him for that. And we see Olav, who is like, he's clearly talking to like Oimo in this one. And he's like, you're a wild pirate, Grandpa. I hate you. And he's like, ah. And so this is probably something that happened about like 2 years ago. Because up until 2 years ago, Oimo was not on Elbath. He didn't know that he had a grandchild. And assumedly all these kids are around the same age as Colin. We know Colin is physically like 20 years old. And a bunch of these kids are probably roughly within that same age range of like, 19, 20, 21, 22 range for how old they are, type of thing. Maybe a year or two older, depending on stuff, considering how, slowly giants age. But like, this is possibly like what Oimo came home to when him and Kashi returned from, Enislavi Water 7, where they'd been for like on Enislavi, where they'd been for like 50 years at that point in time. And like Oimo gets back to Elbath, and like he, like his son or daughter, depending on whichever one is Olaf's parent, is like, Dad, you're home. We've missed you. And he's just like, oh, my child, I'm so happy to see you. And then like he's like, well, you're a grandpa now. Oimo, oh, I'm a grandpa. How wonderful. Where's the little tyke? And they bring out Olaf, and like Olaf is like, I've heard about you. You're a mean pirate. I don't like you, Grandpa, type of stuff. Whereas, like, because, like, Olaf probably would have, like, grown up hearing about, like, yeah, your grandpa is Oimo. He's one of the, former members of the Giant Warrior Pirates. He served under Dorian Broggy. He went out about 50, 30, 50 years ago, whatever, to go and try to, get back, try to go and find him, and Kashi left to go and try to find try to find Dorian Broggy, try to find their captains, and they haven't been back yet. We hope we'll find them soon, or we hope they show back up again soon. But like, he would have grown up hearing those stuff, and he's just like, you're just a mean pirate type of thing. You're a wild pirate type of thing. And then we have Karine with her mother. Her mom has like a baseball cap that has like the horns on them. That's just cute. That's fun. And it's just like, why did you lie again? If you lie to me, how am I supposed to protect you, sweetheart? And like, Karine's like, And then we have Mag with his mom, and he's just like, why did you bring my homework? I left it at home on purpose because I didn't do it. And like, so be like his mom showing up, and she's like got his homework that she's like bringing him at the Walrus School, most likely. And I'm assuming that like when we get to this part in the anime, we'll get like maybe a little bit more of this stuff. Not like a whole lot more, but like a tad more on each of these scenes. Just like a little bit, tad snippets more on some of these. And we see that the kids are, Colin is just like feet from the end of from the dock, and he's like crying, and he's like, I don't want to die, Mommy. And like, we can see very clearly, like, they have like the thorns are very clear at this moment from our perspective. And like, he's walking and walking, and like, Ripley has shown up at the end of the ramp, and he's like, and he like looks at her, and she's like, Colin, and she's like got her arms out ready to take him. And we just get this panel of like Ripley just like closing her arms around Colin, with like the spikes, just the thorns just like stabbing up and down her arm and through her leg and into her, through her, out her back, as she's like grabbing her son. And like, Scopper would be freaking here too. Scopper would be here too if he was, in this area, he would be here too, and like trying to grab Colin in the same way. We know this. And she's like, come here, my son. And she's like holding on to him, and like, she's got like, we do see like a tear going down her face. And he's like, I'm sorry. And she's like, I'm sorry. I couldn't stop you. And she's like holding on to him. And she is crying, and she is bleeding very much, because we see like she's just bleeding from where all the thorns have stabbed through her. I would be doing the same thing for my nieces and nephew. No ifs, ands, or buts. I'd be doing the same thing for them. I'd be grabbing them in the same way. It's like, I don't care if I'm getting stabbed. I'm going to protect them to the best of my ability. And so like, she's holding him, and like, we just see Colin just like crying more and more, and he's like, get away from me, Mom, you're gonna die too. And she's like, but everything is gonna be fine. I won't let you die alone. And she's smiling, and I'm just like, we're just gonna make Ripley an honorary member of the Will of D clan. She is smiling in the face of her own demise. Just, you get that, girl, you get that. You get the Will of D. Just honorary member there, right there you go, girl. Dying to protect her child at the risk of her own life. All of that. Love it. I mean, I don't love that it's happening. I love how this is being portrayed. And that is the thing, is like, that is one of the things that Oda has like harped on throughout this story, as like, for the most part, barring like Big Mom and Big Mom and Estrid, the majority of the mothers that we have seen throughout One Piece are just nothing but loving and caring to their children. Dawn is like tough love, but she still loves Ace and Luffy and Sabo. and like all of that stuff. But like we have seen that like so many moms in this story, and some of the dads too, would be in this situation where they would be grabbing their child, and we're gonna see it here. A couple of we're gonna see that with like Ronya's father, like Oimo and stuff like that here, where they would just be grabbing their child and like protecting them to the best of their ability, even at the cost of their own life in this case. And like we see, and they fall because the arrow pushes them, because Colin keeps walking, and that pushes him and Ripley off the side off the cliff. And we see that Ilva's mother has gotten to her and is like grabbing her. And we see Scaldy, I think it's his father, is the one who grabs Scaldy. And we see like, and like we see like each of the parents are like grabbing each of them. Parents or grandparent indicate, it's like Ilva's mom grabs her, and Scaldy's mom grabs him, and Oimo has grabbed Olav, and then Karin's mother has like showed up and is like grabbing her. Mag's mother is grabbing him, and they're all just being, still stabbed by the thorns, but they're grabbing their child regardless, as they're being, still forced to keep walking and get pushed over the side of the cliff, over the side of the ledge. And Summers is laughing his ass off. Again, not many times throughout the course of any story have I wanted to punch old men. This is one of them. And we see Ronya, and she's like, "It's okay, everyone. They're gonna save us." And she's like, "They're gonna save us, right?" And it gets to there we go. And it gets to Ronya, and we see the way that, we see her, and she's just like crying, and she's like, "They're gonna save us, right?" And we get her father has gotten to her and is like grabbing her from behind, and he's like, "You did great earlier, Ronya." So, when she gave her speech several chapters ago, when she was like forced to walk to the edge of the branch, when Gunko was going to have her jump, all of that to threaten them to start burning down the library and the school and everything. That was broadcast all over Elbath, and like her father heard it, and like everybody else heard it, and like now he's shown up here, and he's like, "I was so proud. You did so well earlier. You were great earlier, baby." And he's holding her as they're falling, and we see like Bent's mother, who's of course the one that the MoMA is based on, and she's got there, and she's like holding him, and he's like, "Mom," and she's like, Bent's grabbing him, and he's like, we get like the little bit of the flashback, and it's like, what scares me the most? My mom. And he's like, "Forgive me for saying you scared me." And she's like, "It's okay for me to be scary, son. Mommy lives to protect you." I love that. I love that. Because, yeah, your parents, like, you can see it. It's like the whole thing of like Mama Bear is scary, but Mama Bear to her cubs is like, "We'll protect" type of stuff. And that is very much kind of this setup here of just like, well, if you're the freaking ones who have, if you're the moms of, if you're the ones who have raised these warriors of Elbath, it's like, see how badass Dory and Broggy's moms were. How badass were their moms. How badass was Jarl's mom? All those hundreds of years ago. How badass was she? For what Jarl turned into. It's like, so it's like, these are the moms of Elbath. They have raised generations of warriors of Elbath. They themselves are warriors of Elbath, even if they're, moms who are wearing an apron and stay at home and cook, because that's what they want to do, because they want to take care of their family. But we saw in the last chapter, they are still more than willing and more than capable of being like, "Yeah, no, this thing is here and that it's threatening our child and threatening our home. We are going to punch the living hell out of it, regardless of whether or not it looks like our sun god deity type of thing." So that's just great. So we've got, Ben's mom shows up and grabs him. And then we have Johanna, who's not the last one in line, but she's one of the last ones. And she's thinking, "It must be nice having parents that can hold you like that." And we get a little flashback to her at school, and we see Ange talking to her, and she's like, "I can stand in for your parents." And Johanna is just like, "But you're not my mom." And and at the end of the previous chapter, Jinbei had mentioned that Ange had run off, and Ange has now shown up here, and she has jumped and she has grabbed Johanna, so she is the one protecting Johanna. And this is very much this teacher mentality of like, there are teachers out there that will and have given their safety and their lives to protect their students. And those are awesome teachers. Teachers should get paid so much more and have so much better benefits than what they have. I have no argument with that whatsoever. And so Ange has shown up and she has grabbed Johanna, and she's like, Johanna, and Johanna is just like, Ange sensei, because she's crying because she's so happy about this. And now we get to Bjorn, who was the last one in line, and we have him thinking back and talking to Rode, and he's like, I don't want you coming to school. It's so embarrassing having an otaku brother like you. It's like, it's so annoying and embarrassing having a nerd for a brother. Ugh, horrible. And then, and Rhode's like, I'll try to make sure they don't find me, type of thing. I was like, I'll be sorry about this. And then Ben's just like, Bjorn is just like, divine punishment, huh? And we have like, Rhode is just running at full tilt. Like he helped Gerd and Goldberg at the end of the last chapter to send the attack at the Nika MMA. And now Rhode is just like running at full tilt to get to Bjorn. And he's like, Bjorn Tasso, which I love because it's like, as it was like kind of pre-established before. He refers to people as Tasso because that's kind of like a way of like a limited edition or something like that. So it's just very much like he views his brother, his only, probably only brother, as like limited edition, as like, you are, one of a kind, and I love you no matter what, type of a thing. And he jumps and grabs him. And, Bjorn shouts out, Rhode's getting stabbed. Don't know if Rhode knew about the thorns, but, still props to him. He jumped to save his brother. And it's just like, okay, I don't, it's like Bjorn's like screaming, it's okay, I don't mind at all, brother. And he's like screaming because he's like, so, he's like, I'm, it was kind of like, that's sorry. I'm so sorry that I, treated you horribly, that I acted that way. And then we have Summers just laughing his effed up ass off. And he's just like, look at that. These pieces of trash are about to fall off the cliff. Ha! My heart's pounding. This is what a thrilling story. If you just let them fall and die, it would have only been 10 brats. And he's just like, these parents are such idiots. And he's like laughing and crying and drooling. And it's just like, their parents are such idiots, dying for their children out of love. Ha! My stomach hurts from laughing now. That's what I call a beautiful and utterly pointless death. And like, Oda could have very easily ended the chapter there. Just like, end of chapter, break next week. Oda could have done that. And like, just left us hanging here for like 2 weeks, being like, well, someone's gonna save them. Someone has to save them, right? It's gonna be Luffy. It's gonna be like Luffy and Loki showing up and saving them, but like, we actually get that in this chapter. We cut and we see that it is starting to snow. And we cut and we see that there's just like this giant thing rising up. And like all of them have like thud, landed on something. And they're like, what the heck? And they're like, Ripley's there and she's like, Colin, where are we? And he's like, I don't know, but everyone's alive. It's like they're all like, the thorns seem to be gone. It's because Summers probably like released his thorn powers, or they fell out of range of his powers, whatever, like Robin was trying to do earlier. Or like Summers just like release them because like, they're gonna die anyway, release the power. And like we still see like the blood on Ripley, and like we see blood in various areas because like the parents are still bleeding. The parents and family are still bleeding. They're like, what is going on, Mom? And then we hear that, and it's Luffy. It's like, you're standing on my Gamu Gamu no Hara Senbi, and it's prickly. Then get the hell off already. So, this is the editor's note. It's like, senbei are the Japanese rice crackers, and then hara is just belly. So this is like, Luffy essentially like stretched himself out to make like a giant landing pad, essentially, for them, like giant pillow type thing for them to land on. And he's named it after like the rice crackers, which Garp likes to eat, and so does Son Goku, and like all of that stuff. So that's just kind of like a fun reference there. And it's just like, yeah, and you're all prickly, so can you please get the heck off of me already? Type of thing. Because like they all, they'll have thorns or whatever. Or like maybe it was landing on Nika that like landed on Luffy that like canceled it out. And then we have the, hey you, when we get up there, you're gonna have to get off my back. And like we see like a close-up of this eye, and this eye is very supposed to be like, this is Loki's eye. And it's like, you're gonna have to get off my back. Otherwise, you'll just get in my way during the fight. And like, this giant thing is, hi Chip. I know. And it's like this giant creature is just like rising up and up and up, and it started to snow. And started to snow all over Elbath. Can I help you? Chip. And it's like, your back is like, everybody's confused. Your back. And Luffy's like, you guys fell out of nowhere, didn't you? Good thing we were passing by. So my thought is that maybe they saw the fake Nika and the ship fall through the clouds, and they started to maybe head that way. Like, Loki has turned into his, his Zoan form, and they're flying this way, and they see like the Nika Moma and the ship fall through the clouds, and like, what the heck? So they start going that way. And then maybe Luffy had like his, his premonition type stuff, his, future sight activated. And he saw like the kids and the parents falling on that, and he like directed Loki to go that way. And Loki's just kind of like, growl, growl, growl. I have to go up there anyway. Sure, fine. We'll catch the brats. And he's flying up there, and and like Luffy's just like, yeah, we saw you when we were passing by. And Loki's like, that wasn't my intention. I'm a destroyer, not a savior. I'm not responsible for anyone's life. Now let's move. And like they're going up and up. And we get to Summers, and he's like, is this snowing out of nowhere? And they're like, what is going on? I was like, was that thunder? And then we just hear like this huge clap of thunder, and we see like these bolts of lightning. And like now the island itself is, the Nika drum beat. Which I can't do, but it's like, the Nika drum beat that we've seen that happened in Wano when Luffy awakened, and that we saw happening on Egghead during like those fights and everything else like that, with like the island itself coming to life, or like the sea coming to life when him and Bonnie both went Gear 5th. And it's just like everything is shaking, the trees are shaking, what is going on? Like we cut to the Western Village. We don't see Dory and Bragi, but we do see Jarl and several of the others, and they're like, what rhythm is this? I can feel Elbath trembling. Feel all of Elbath trembling. And Jarl starts to, is like, he's saying something that sounds something like a prophecy. And maybe this is part of a line of the Harley text that we don't know about. Or maybe it's part of a line of some other type of text or prophecy or something like that has been like passed down through the ages in regards to this combination of like sun god Nika's power and, the power that is coming from like Loki's devil fruit, the ancient devil fruit, and like Ragnar thrown in there. And it's just like, on a strange day of snow, lightning, and thunder, the sky shall be covered by a colossal beast, and along with the drums of liberation. And we cut, and we see like just like giant spikes like rising up over like the horizon, and like Summers is just the effed out of his, scared out of his effing mind face, and like Imu Gunko is just like sensing something. We don't see Brooke. We don't see them in the middle of a fight. I'm really hoping we see something that shows them fighting. Maybe in the next chapter. But this chapter very much was focusing on the kids and the parents. And then, well, this final 2 awesome double-page spread, which just looks effing amazing. And we have... So we get to the last page. Last double page. And, so it's like the continuation of like what Yara was saying, it's just like, on a strange day of snow, lightning, and thunder, the sky shall be covered by a colossal beast, and along with the drums of liberation. the sun god, the god of the god of sun shall appear. So we see Luffy is shown up here, and it's, you know, like we get this giant double page spread of just like this huge dragon popping through and just like growing it, you know, just huge dragon. Sorry, computer being stupid. And like this huge dragon, and like it looks black. And I wouldn't be mad if Oda made like this giant freaking dragon black. That wouldn't be a problem. But given that Loki's predominant colors are kind of like purple, from what we saw from like his you know, colors on the cover of one of the volumes, I'm kind of wanting this to be a giant purple dragon. And I mean, like, you know, not that giant black dragons aren't cool, because they are. And like I've seen so many people like comparing this to like Maleficent, like as the Disney fan, I'm like, perfect, have no notes. It was like people are like comparing this to being like between like Drogon from like Game of Thrones type dragon combined with like Maleficent but with like Loki's horns. And all of that I am fine with, but I would also just love it if it ended up being a purple dragon. Gotta admit, that would be adorable. Just like, and we have a giant dragon. And he's purple. And like what we are seeing here for scale wise is we have like, so Luffy has gone into his giant form, which, you know, for size comparison for like roughly how big like Kaido was, is kind of how big this is, because like Luffy was using that version of Kaido as like a jump rope. And we see Ragnar here, and Ragnar's in his squirrel form, and he's just like, squeak! And Luffy's just like, look at that size. Now that's more like it. You look hilarious. And like, Luffy is just like on top of his head. So like, Luffy is still like super small in comparison to how big this dragon is. And like, Loki is already this huge giant. You know, this, you know, one of the largest giants we have ever seen. Him and Harald were just like these huge giants, and like Loki is just so big. And like now he's, you know, he has the devil fruit power, and he is just so big in general. And it's like, I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, yeah, no, I believe that this thing is more than strong enough to be able to just shred through a god's knight. Long enough to make them, you know, hinder in their ability to regenerate. It's like, no, I believe that. And like I know that Tekking wanted Loki to be an eagle, and I'm like, that would have been really cool, but he's like chained around, you know, when he's introduced to us, he's chained around the roots of Yggdrasil, and that's like where Nidhogg is supposed to be. And like even in this, like we're seeing like Loki is just like a bunch of the Momas are getting destroyed and shredded at this point in time, and like they're just dwarfed by how large Loki is in this form. No confirmation as to what devil fruit this is. Could end up being, you know, like the Ryo no Mi, you know, mythical zone model. Nidhogg could reference a different dragon. Maybe it's the mythical, you know, or the Ryo no Mi model, you know, Maleficent or something like that. That'd be funny. No. Giant black dragon or something like that. And like, cause we see like the Moma Nidhogg off to the side, and it has similar shape, not exactly the same, but a similar shape to what Loki's dragon is. But like how big he is, like just dwarfing the other, dwarfing the monsters that are running around, the Momas, and like just how big Loki is. And I'm just like, oh god, that is so cool. Again, I know someone, you know, I know Tekking wanted him to be an eagle. Sorry, Tekking, he's not an eagle, he's a dragon. And I know people are like, but we already have dragons. We have Kaido, and Kiringham's a dragon. And I'm like, yes, this is a very different kind of dragon. So just giant effing dragon. No arguments, no notes. Perfect. We have break next week. don't know what's going to happen in the next chapter. Assumedly, it's going to be like a page maybe of like Loki just like shredding through the Momas to destroy them, get the parents and the kids off of Loki's back. We don't see them in this panel, in this double page spread. We don't see them here, but assumedly they'll get the kids and the parents off of his back. And, you know, set them down somewhere. Loki will go rampaging, and then they'll be like, okay, let's go see what's going on here. And they'll go and they'll end up finding their way to like where, you know, depending on what's going on with Dorian Broggy, or like we'll see who gets, you know, pulled which direction. Hopefully we cut back to see what some of the other Straw Hats are doing. Hopefully we also just see Loki just look at Summers and just go, and then Summers is just down for the count for a while. Like, Loki, Conqueror's hockey up one of his claws. Oh, you did this. Okay. Just Summers just like falls to pieces. Just like has like the same look he had on his face when it came to Scopper. Just falls to pieces. And then like, so Robin would be out of her thorns at that point in time. Hopefully. And then they can, you know, okay, we're gonna head in whatever direction we need to head in to go and deal with whomever. And I know that so many people are like, Loki, ferocious, horrible dragon. Me, toothless. Toothless. Because I love How to Train Your Dragon. I will eventually do reviews for all of the movies, but like I love How to Train Your Dragon. But we have like Toothless and like him just being adorable. And like, you know, he is this very ferocious type of creature that we get him described as the Night Fury throughout the course of the first movie, in the beginning of the first movie. And then of course he ends up just being this utter doofus of a dragon, that can go ferocious at any point in time. And I kind of like that comparison there for like him being similar to Loki. Plus, How to Train Your Dragon is also based within like Norse mythology and stuff like that as well, because like they're Vikings. So it's kind of based on similar source material. And I don't know, I don't think that's what Oda's going for, but I like that idea. So that's what I have here. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye!